still there?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, did you see the first unit?
No,
Yes.
unfortunately, I had conflict.
Okay, but one of you did, right?
Yes, I did. Judy did.
Judy did, okay. All right, well, we're going to look at Isadora Duncan Part 2, and I'm going to concentrate mostly on her legacy, what she's contributed to in the way of the dance world. I'm going to look at, after we look at some more stuff on Isadora, based on the Isadorables, in remembrance of what they did with her when they were young. Then we'll look and see, we'll look at Scheherazade, Afternoon of a Faun, and Firebird, and see if we can see at the end of all of this some of the influence of Isadora Duncan on these two choreographers, Vaslav Nijinsky and Mikhail Fakin, and see if we can see some of the similarities in the movements that she brings about that influence classical ballet at around 1910, 1912. Okay, so we're going to look primarily at some of these video clips to begin with.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You haven't started to share your screen yet, so we can't see what you're watching?
What?
You haven't started to share your screen yet?
I haven't, oh my.
So if you'll share your screen, then we can see what you're watching.
Okay, that might help. All right, somebody else joined us here.
Yes, Leanne joined us.
Oh, good. Leanne, good to have you with us. All right, so I'm sharing my, no, I'm not leaving the meeting. I'm sharing my screen. Host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Oh, hold on. Let me do something. Hold on. I'm sorry. I will need to make you a co-host so that you can share your screen. We had an episode a couple of weeks ago with a Zoom bomber in class who attempted to share their screen a few times. And so we turned off that feature for instructors and I forgot. So
Okay.
now you should be able to do it.
Okay, I've got my full screen.
Now you'll need to go back into your Zoom menu and find where it says the green button, share screen.
I did that a couple times, I guess it didn't.
And you'll have to do it again now that you've been given permission.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, we got it?
Not yet.
How about now?
Not yet.
Okay, let's try this.
Oh, now I see it.
Got it?
I do. And so now if you want to start your presentation.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to mute myself again and let you take it away.
Okay. All right, so we're going to look at some video clips and then we're going to compare those video clips with 3 classical ballets and see if we see some influences of Isadora Duncan. Now keep in mind, at the turn of the century, your choices as a dancer were ballet with all of its, what, couple hundred steps that you had to learn for your technique, or you could be a chorus girl. So Isadora Duncan gave us another aesthetic in dance. And so she was huge in terms of opportunities that a dancer might have. And you can see her, of course, her influences on Martha Graham and all of the current choreographers that are so popular today. But let's go ahead and look at some more clips of Isadora Duncan's work. And this time we're going to see some clips from students of Isadora that will be more authentic than what we saw maybe. That doesn't mean that Vanessa Redgrave didn't do her due diligence with the movie Isadora. I'm sure she did. But we're going to see some stuff that probably is more schooled in the from Isadora Duncan. So let's go ahead and look at a couple video clips.
If people ask me when I began to dance, I reply, in my mother's womb. I was born on May 26, 1877, in San Francisco, California, and from the moment I entered the world, I moved my arms and legs in such a fury that my mother cried, "The child is a maniac." My father was a poet and an artist in his own right. He also caused the downfall of the San Francisco Pioneer Bank and the bankruptcy of many hard-working people. My relatives called him the demon who ruined my mother's life. Reeling from the scandals, my mother divorced my father. She left with my two brothers, my sister, and me to face a life of poverty and single motherhood. Mother also renounced her Catholic upbringing, became an atheist, and decided that all sentimentality was nonsense. She taught us that there is no Santa Claus, nor any God, but only our own spirits to guide us. The dominant note of my childhood was the constant spirit of revolt against the narrowness of the society in which we lived. That spirit has stayed with me all my life. It is the spirit of freedom, spontaneity, revolution, nature. It is the spirit of my dance. From the first, I have only danced my life. As a child, I danced the spontaneous joy of growing things. My mother allowed me to leave the prison of school at age 10, and from then on, I was free to wander alone by the sea and follow my own fantasies. Although I was freed from regular school, Mother put me in another sort of classroom. The old-fashioned American ballet was merely stiff and commonplace gymnastics. When the teacher told me to stand on my toes, I asked him why, and when he replied, "Because it is beautiful," I said that it was ugly and against nature. I left his class never to return. Instead, I began to study nature. One might ask, how can a dancer learn from nature when the dance consists of hundreds of steps and all the rules and teachings of the ballet masters? And I would reply, the dance does not consist of all that. The dance is the movement of the human body in harmony with the movement of the earth. musician uses his violin to tell of the highest thought, the singer the voice, I would use that greatest of all instruments, the human body, and its language would be movement.
Isn't that beautiful? And my brother and I, when we grew up in Southern California, we'd take our little wooden swords and go charging out at the breakers coming in. And of course, they would knock us on our butts and we'd get sand in our shorts and come washing up on the shore. But still, it was a form of ballet, I guess, to us, or dance to us. We knew very little about dance at the time. But great fun. Okay, let's go to this little clip on the Dance Rebels and see how Isadora is viewed by other dancers today.
These few seconds of film are the only surviving moving images of the woman whose ideas ignited modern dance.
She was somebody I was fascinated by because she did something that no one else had done. The dance I'd been trained in was holding a chair and doing repetitive things at the age of 4 that seemed so not related to dance at all. And she was actually a free spirit.
Isadora Duncan was an American whose style broke free from the rigid conventions of classical ballet.
Ballet began life in the courts of the great European kings and queens. So it was always on the side of the ruling class. It was always in the Grand Opera House, would be very set to certain conventions, a sort of 3 or 4 act ballet, very opulently styled. And by the end of the 19th century, there was a sense that ballet had become encrusted in its own conventions. And the spirit of dance, the physicality, the freedom of it, the expressiveness of it, that was not happening on stage.
At the turn of the century, there were a number of American female dancers who performed in loose clothes and bare feet and danced in a new naturalistic style. Isadora Duncan became the icon of this movement.
She did, I think, open up the stages of Europe and America to the possibility that you didn't just have to see virtuoso dancers in point shoes and tutus. It became about the driving spirit of contemporary dance, which has always been to reinvent itself as a language for the expression of new ideas.
I think what you're talking about when you talk about Isadora Duncan is this kind of freedom from convention. What is your voice? What is your kind of expression? And so I guess when I think about her, that's what I think is really kind of paramount, that she just did what she wanted.
We'll take it into the sagittal plane. So I want to see the back space.
Isadora was a feminist. She put her ideas into her manifesto, the dancer of the future.
She is coming, the dancer of the future. The free spirit will inhabit the body of all women. Show me the suspension. She will dance not in the form of a nymph, nor fairy, nor coquette, but in the form of women, in its greatest and purest expression. From all parts of her body shall shine radiant intelligence.
Feet, find your vertical axis.
Bringing to the world the thoughts and aspirations of thousands of women. This is the mission of the dancer of the future.
She's a pioneer of modern dance, and the fact that her writing was part of her art. Of course, she was a dancer, but I could read some. As a very, very young dancer, I was very inspired.
It's a natural, expressive style of the body. So it's not about form in the way that ballet was. It's a political notion because she's a woman saying, I can move freely through space. I don't have to restrict myself and appear in a very polite manner.
It's hard to underestimate the importance of Isadora Duncan then, partly because she was such a personality cult. I mean, people thronged to see her. We have no idea if she was such a great dancer, but she had immense charisma, immense personal power on stage.
Okay, here's I love this photograph. I guess because it reminds me of the sepia tone of the photograph reminds me of my grandparents and some of the pictures of them. But this is just gorgeously laid out. And there's Isadora in the center of it all with the 6 girls that she adopted and danced with her for right up until her death. And so the choreography that we're going to look at comes from basically these 6 adopted girls that were called the Isadorables. And this was what, 1917 that this picture was taken. So let's look at some of the choreography that is more directly related to what these girls remembered from their work. And they would probably been what, 55, 65 years old when they were sharing their remembrances of this choreography. First one will be Narcissus, done to the Chopin Waltz, Opus 64. It was right around 1900. And when you watch the video, watch for the those moments where Narcissus, or the dancer in this case, Narcissus, is trying to take his image out of water and hold it in the choreography. Isn't that beautiful? And of course the setting, so natural. The outdoor setting is just beautiful for this simple little piece. And then her trying to capture that image in the water and pick it up and hold it. And of course it evaporates and it's gone. It's just something lovely about that whole small piece. I love this photograph of, it's not Isadora Duncan, obviously, but still it's just got so much energy and beauty to it. And this is from the Blue Danube.
This is a new art, a harmony of movements. Every other dancer will now strike me as clumsy and forced. She is irresistible.
Miss Duncan is deservedly quite the rage.
Her season has been most successful from both the artistic and the financial point of view.
Her performances command the same prices as those of Sarah Bernhardt.
Miss Duncan equals the grace of Pavlova.
The holy, the divine Isadora.
Beautiful. Just the simple joy of that kind of movement going to that waltz is so gorgeous to me. How about this photograph? Wow, Dance of the Furies. This is Gluck and his Orfeo. The only Orfeo I was ever familiar with was the Monteverdi Orfeo, the story of Orpheus going down and getting Eurydice out of the Greek idea of hell. And remember in the story, as he's taking her back out, he's told he cannot look at her. He's got to have faith that she'll be behind him. And of course, we know what happens. But before we can go into hell, he has to get through the Furies, and they're not excited about him going in there at all. But remember, he seduces the Furies with his song and his melody, and he goes down into hell to get Eurydice. So this is a depiction of the Furies as they encounter Orpheus. Just the raw energy of that is marvelous. You know, they've taken the dance program away from UALR. And if I were a theater major, I would want to have that kind of training. I would certainly want to be exposed to the opportunity to use my body in this kind of way, so that I would feel more comfortable on stage all the time with the use of my body. I mean, there's something about this training that can't be matched in, say, an acting class, where you're internalizing an emotion. This is where you're externalizing that emotion with every fiber of your body. Every muscle in your face and your hands and your feet are put into the creation of this emotion, feeling, and character. And I would want that kind of training, but unfortunately it's been taken away. Okay, let's see if we can go someplace next here. Yeah, let's see some group dancers do some Duncan movement. This is from Tchaikovsky's Pathétique, which I think is Passion. And let's see what she does with it. Most of the time, Isadora Duncan used music from the Romantic period. The Gluck, of course, is early classicism. Almost sounds a little Baroque to me, but this is from Tchaikovsky. Wow. You know, there's something about that monolithic architecture in the background that makes this work so beautifully. I would love to go, well, I'm sure the Arkansas Symphony will do this, and maybe they have fairly recently, I don't remember, but boy, I'd go see this in a heartbeat or go hear it. I love the music, I always have, but there's something about that architecture in these dancers that just works beautifully for me. Okay, let's look at three pieces from um, classical ballet. Vasilov Nijinsky's Afternoon of a Faun will be the first piece we look at. And notice how Nijinsky has flattened the space. And then I guess you'd have to ask yourself, how does that work for a story about a faun who falls in love with a mortal? And the ending of this, of course, was scandalous at the time. No, we don't have time to play the ending, but if you ever get a chance to look at the whole piece, you can see what I'm talking about. But anyway, let's look at some of the choreography here and see if you see some influences other than the scarf from Isadora. And both Nijinsky and Fokine have talked about how Isadora Duncan influenced them later in their choreography, and how some of the classical ballerinas of the time talked about how Isadora had freed them from the constraints of classical ballet. This was 1912 in France. And the music is Debussy. Okay, now I've seen this fairly recently done outdoors in a realistic setting, and I thought it didn't work at all. And then I saw Jerome Robbins' Afternoon of a Faun, where he had two classically trained dancers do it as more of kind of a typical ballet piece with a beautiful ballerina and beautiful male dancer. And for some reason, it didn't work for me at all either. And I think it's because Nijinsky has tapped into the mythology by flattening the space, making it two-dimensional, and making it in a kind of another world, not a cartoon world, but has managed to capture maybe the mythological world of the piece by the way he's choreographed this and flattened the space. But did you see how simple the movements are of the dancer? Nothing that you would expect from a classically trained dancer on point. And in the Jerome Robbins, she is on point a lot. But anyway, we can talk about this after we're finished. Let's look at Scheherazade. And again, these are a classical ballet company. And this woman that you're going to see that dances Scheherazade has flexibility beyond belief. And the male dancer is equally as talented as well. But see if you don't see some Isadora Duncan here. Okay, and this goes on what, for 1,001 nights? But God, is it beautiful. Think we have to remember that Isadora got her start in Budapest. She performed for 30 nights straight to sold out audiences. And I think partly because of the gypsy influence, perhaps the whole idea of a simple tunic and these kinds of sensual movements, in some cases, that audiences throng to. But I hope you saw some of perhaps the influences on modern dance here, along with the classical course movements as well. But beautiful stuff. Okay, let's look at, now we're not going to see the real classical ballet part of this because that happens with the Firebird in the opening of the ballet. But I want you to see the chorus part of this and how the simple movements of the chorus, elegant, beautiful, might have been influenced by Isadora as well. And let's see, this would have been around 1910 as well. Scheherazade 1910, I think 1912 for Afternoon of a Faun. Now the prince has already had his scene with the Firebird, and then there's this world of maidens that Kerchief, the evil magician, has kept them walled up in his little world. There again, we see just the simplicity of the movements, still beautiful. The corps de ballet playing a more significant role maybe in the ballet. We certainly get the virtuosity with the Firebird and some of her famous movements. But I think we can see some of the influences of Duncan in all three of these pieces. Okay, let them come forth with great strides, leaps and bounds, with lifted forehead and far spread arms. That will be America dancing. And this has been our introduction, well, kind of a brief introduction to Isadora Duncan as the mother of modern dance, her influences. What follows, of course, is what's called aesthetic dance, where more and more women became involved in the dance world. Then I was going to move on to Martha Graham and feature some of her, most of the, well, Appalachian Spring, probably a little bit of that, but I was going to put a heavy influence on some of her pieces from Greek mythology and Greek drama. Then I was going to go to Catherine Dunham, African-American choreographer, and look at some of her barrel house blues and influences that she has on modern dance. Then I thought we would close with de Kirchmacher, who choreographed the recent version of West Side Story. That was the idea I had, but I'll go with whatever anyone might be interested in the way of theater or dance. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the clips I put together for Isadora Duncan. If you have some suggestions for me, I'd love to hear them. If there's anything that you noticed about Isadora Duncan that you thought was fascinating, I'd like to hear about that.
I've really enjoyed that. Go ahead, Leanne.
Well, I think oh gosh, we've seen so many. The one with the dancer in red by herself. Oh gosh, which one was it now?
Narcissus.
Anyway, pardon?
Narcissus.
I think it was the Furies one.
Oh, Furies,
The one
right.
before the Furies. Wow, I mean the physical that's not just prancing around, which is what I think people probably said about Isadora.
Yes, you're right.
I mean that her control of her body, and then when we saw the were there 6 dancers in that beautiful setting that you talked about?
Right.
I think the shorter dancer of that group kind of proved to me that that your physical body doesn't totally matter. They're all ballerinas seem so long and lithe, but that woman was, I couldn't take my eyes off her.
I couldn't either. Yeah, she had a lot of emotion and feeling through the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Leanne,
well,
I noticed the same thing watching that. Was where it struck me that her dance music style lends itself to probably every body shape.
Right.
Whereas opposed to ballet, you're used to a more slender.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right.
Even the chorus.
So anyway, that just my observation.
Yeah, even the chorus girls from Ziegfeld had to have a certain body type. But I think with Isadora Duncan, it can be anybody that can bring passion and feeling that works with the music can be powerful. And that's why I think the training in modern dance is so critical to acting.
Right, I see your point.
You need to have a body that can express feeling and emotion from your fingertips, your toe tips, to every fiber in your hair needs to go into that character.
Uh-huh.
And this kind of training is perfect for that. That's why I'm still upset about losing the dance program at UAL.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree with her that point shoes are an abomination.
Yeah, right.
That's not natural.
I wouldn't know.
It's just amazing what this woman's able to accomplish in bare feet in the simplest of tunics. unbelievable.
Right.
Does anybody else have any thoughts they'd like to share? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and have a chat with Wayne.
If there's anything you'd like me to concentrate on and move away from, and be happy to do it, as long as it's something that I feel like I could really get myself into.
I don't know enough to know what to ask for, but I think you having shown us the fawn in the other classes, and then you're bringing it back here is helpful. I mean, what I remember at any rate.
Right.
Oh, sad. Well, so are you coming back next Tuesday, Gina?
No, not next Tuesday. Wayne was just doing part 2 or part 1 and part 2,
Okay.
and then we'll have
Okay.
classes in July. Sandra has a question or comment for you, Wayne.
Yeah.
You want to go ahead?
I was just going to say that having missed the rest of it, but it's recorded.
Yes.
So, yeah, great. It was absolutely lovely. I really know very little about dance, and I have watched some ballet, and I like ballet, but this is, I think, better. Tell you the truth. It's not so and the costumes are so much more well at showing beautiful bodies and their movements.
Yes, right. You get to see all the muscles in your body, and I think that's part of what I love about modern dance is the amount of energy that comes out of it. That's not so formal. It's got a spontaneity about it and a freedom about it, and an energy that is hard to duplicate, I think. What concerns me about this format, of course, is the sound factor, that because I'm hearing the music through speakers that are not too bad, and I can really hear the full quality of the sound of the music, because all of these pieces are from great composers, great pieces of music, and I'm hoping that people can hear that as well, but I'm not sure that's happening.
I think it's still enjoyable through headphones myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing, you asked, there was a piece with people in Middle Eastern costume, and you said, other than her scarf, what do you see that could be from Isadora Duncan's school?
Right.
And it's funny that Leanne said prancing, but that's kind of what I picked up on.
Yeah.
I don't remember seeing prancing in classical ballet, so that kind of movement to me was more from her school.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing that I was just really fascinated with is how nature, particularly water, particularly the ocean, how in harmony she seems to be with her choreography. I can imagine being in a forest of maybe pine trees or something, and having the wind come through those trees and having her dancing. It just seems like she's able to capture this whole sense of a natural world that seems to be in harmony with her body.
Thank you.
Oh,
yes.
And so the outdoor scenes, I think, really work well. Those things that she does in a Greek amphitheater too are marvelous with that kind of background.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that Martha Graham ever does anything like that, but what she does with her Greek pieces is she'll take iconography and make that part of her set pieces that she'll do some of her dances to. But I really would love to share some of Martha Graham's work from the Greeks, particularly with my interest in Greek theater. But trying to think, it's not Medusa, it's Medea. Her Medea, Martha Graham's Medea, where Medea is eating her own entrails, is
sorry.
Yeah, sounds ghastly, but when you think about the story of Medea, it just seems to work so well. And Martha Graham has a real understanding and grasp, I think, of the Greeks that's pretty moving. So I'd love to share some of that with you guys.
We could do that
That'd
one
be
with a
good.
warning beforehand.
Yeah, right. Right.
That was going to be the next class was going to be on Martha Graham and some of her work.
Oh,
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. I appreciate you ladies
Oh.
joining us, and I appreciate you, Wayne, for doing this for these people and for
thank
me.
you.
And
Thank you so much.
it's a great way to start the week.
Okay, be safe. Be safe.
Yes.
Right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.